Elara's unbelievable decision exposed. Can love really overcome space and time? What if love wasn't just something you felt? What if it was something that could bend the fabric of time itself? The universe is vast. And yet, when Elara, an ordinary human, came face to face with Azrion, a heptapod from a distant galaxy, she realized something shocking. Love doesn't have to be of this world. It doesn't have to be understood. It only needs to be real. But, love that transcends galaxies, hearts that span light years, it comes at a price, doesn't it? What happens when two hearts, bound by forces greater than themselves, awaken a power so uncontrollable, so dangerous, it could rip apart everything they know? Can they hold on to their love when the very laws of time and reality bend beneath their feet? And the most chilling question of all: if you had the power to change everything, would you? What would you sacrifice to rewrite the universe? This isn't just another love story. This is the story of Elara and Azrion. A human, and an alien, fighting not just for each other, but for the future of everything they hold dear. As their worlds collide, they must decide, what price are they willing to pay for love? The journey you're about to experience isn't just filled with twists and turns, it's a journey that will make you question everything you thought you knew about love, time, and the universe itself. So, if you're ready to dive in, don't just watch, stay until the end. Because once you know what happens next, you'll never look at love the same way again. And as we embark on this adventure, remember, this story has only just begun. Hit subscribe now, and join us on this cosmic adventure. The buzzing atmosphere of the space trading hub was like no other Elara had ever experienced. It wasn't just a market, it was a boiling pot of different species, cultures, and dark secrets, all colliding in the center of a vast, unexplored universe. It was a place of rare technologies, precious resources, and shady dealings. Every stall, every corner, every interaction screamed the silent promise of wealth or betrayal. Elara, clad in a tight-fitting, technologically advanced suit that hugged her curves with purpose, walked confidently through the bustling market. Her dark, long hair, styled in soft waves, swayed with each step, reflecting the neon lights of distant galaxies. Her eyes, large and expressive, flicked from one vendor to another, scanning for deals or threats. The tight suit she wore was sleek, designed for functionality as much as it was for fashion, offering protection while maintaining elegance. She was, in every way, the picture of poise and danger. Her eyes narrowed as she approached a new section of the trade station, a darkened alleyway where the usual hum of chatter faded into the shadows. It wasn't a place for casual visitors, and the air was thick with the smell of old tech and desperation. She had been here before, but tonight felt different. Tonight, something in the air told her the stakes were higher. Elara had been sent here by the Galactic Council on a special mission, to broker a deal with the Heptapods, an ancient alien species rumored to possess a technology capable of bending the laws of physics. It was her job to get the deal done, to convince the Heptapods that the humans were worthy of their trust. But there was one problem. She wasn't prepared for him. From the depths of the shadows, his silhouette emerged, tall, powerful, and mesmerizing. He was unlike any creature she had ever seen. His skin was a shimmering violet, the color of distant nebulae, with patterns of light pulsing gently beneath the surface. His features were sharp, almost too perfect. His eyes, an intense shade of cobalt, locked onto hers the moment he stepped into the dim light. Azrion. Her heart skipped a beat. Azrion was not just a heptapod. He was something more, something dangerous. His frame was muscular, each movement deliberate and commanding. The sleek, high-tech armor he wore hugged his body, offering a glimpse of his chiseled form. His pointed ears, characteristic of his species, twitched slightly as he stepped closer, his every move emanating both power and control. "You're Elara, aren't you?" His voice was low, smooth, but there was something haunting about it, something that hinted at ancient knowledge and a weight of responsibility Elara couldn't even begin to fathom. Elara stood still, her breath catching in her throat. She nodded slowly. "And you must be Azrion." He smiled, a gesture that sent a shiver down her spine. It wasn't a friendly smile, it was the kind of smile that suggested he knew things she couldn't even begin to understand. "I've been waiting for you." The words hung in the air between them, as if the entire market, the universe itself, had paused. The silence was suffocating, and Elara could feel her pulse quicken, her senses heightened. She couldn't help but be drawn to him, his presence filling every inch of the space. The heptapod's power wasn't just physical, it radiated from him, an almost tangible force that made her heart race faster than it should. She had encountered many alien species in her career, but none had ever made her feel this way. The pull between them was magnetic, inexplicable. She could sense his gaze on her, examining, calculating, understanding her in ways that felt invasive yet strangely intimate. "Why have you come to this place, Elara?" Azrion's question pierced through the tension. "I came to negotiate a deal," she answered, steadying her breath, keeping her voice firm. "But now, it seems I may have underestimated just how dangerous this place really is." Azrion's eyes flickered with a mixture of amusement and curiosity. He took a step closer, his towering figure looming over her, and for a split second, Elara's breath caught in her throat. She had expected power from him, she hadn't anticipated how it would feel to be so close to it. "The danger here is not just from the criminals who lurk in the shadows, Elara," he said, his voice a whisper now. "The true danger comes from what we seek." Elara's heart pounded. She knew he wasn't just talking about the trade deal anymore. This was something more. Something personal. Something between them. Before she could respond, a low rumble echoed from deep within the station. The lights flickered for a moment, and a distant siren began to wail. The atmosphere shifted. It wasn't just the market in chaos anymore. Something was happening. Azrion's gaze hardened, and in that instant, Elara felt the change within him. This was no longer a simple negotiation. This was war, both in the station and within themselves. The siren's wail echoed louder, a shrill reminder that the station was no longer just a marketplace, it was a battleground. The chaos that Elara had initially dismissed as typical of the space trade hub was now alive with real danger. Shadows moved quickly, and murmurs of a clandestine operation began to flood the air. Azrion's body tensed, the muscles under his violet skin rippling as if responding to a call only he could hear. Elara watched, entranced by the fluidity of his movements, the way his presence seemed to fill the space. It was as if the universe itself bent around him. She could sense that he wasn't just a participant in the galactic dealings here, he was a force, one whose weight in this world was immeasurable. Without a word, Azrion reached out, his hand brushing against Elara's arm in a gesture so quick and unexpected that she barely had time to react. His touch was like fire, warm, but with an undercurrent of something unspoken. His eyes, glowing with an unnatural intensity, locked onto hers. "Elara," he said, his voice low, just above a whisper. "There are things you don't understand yet. Things you shouldn't. But I can't let you walk away from this, not now." She felt a shiver run down her spine. His words, so deliberate, seemed to penetrate her mind deeper than they should have. Elara was used to controlling the situation, to being the one in charge of any negotiation. But here, standing inches away from Azrion, she felt herself being pulled in a direction she hadn't anticipated. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice betraying the confusion that knotted in her stomach. Azrion hesitated, his gaze flickering briefly to the shadows. The lights flickered again, casting strange patterns across the walls. He was hiding something, Elara could feel it, like a storm waiting to break. The Heptapods are not just traders. We are not just here for power, or for resources. We're here because our time is running out. His words hit her like a blow to the chest. Running out? He nodded, his eyes growing darker with a strange mixture of fear and resolve. There are forces within the galaxy that seek to destroy us, to eliminate the last of our kind. But what they don't know, what you don't know, is that the Heptapods hold the key to something greater. Something that can alter the very fabric of reality itself. Elara's heart pounded. She was no stranger to dangerous games, but this was beyond anything she had expected. The Heptapods were ancient, their knowledge and technology superior, but now, it seemed their existence was threatened by something far more sinister than mere rival traders. "What exactly is it you're talking about?" Elara asked, though part of her knew she wasn't ready for the answer. Azrion moved closer, his proximity making her pulse spike. He reached out, his fingertips lightly grazing the side of her face. It wasn't a touch she was used to. The warmth of his skin, combined with the coldness of his words, created a confusing clash of emotions. "It's a power," he began slowly, almost as though testing the words on his tongue. "A force tied to the fabric of time. The Heptapod's language is a key to unlocking it." Elara swallowed, trying to process what he was saying. "Time." Azrion nodded, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that felt almost overwhelming. "Time is not linear to us, Elara. The language we speak allows us to understand and see the past, present, and future at once. But this power, it's not something that can be controlled lightly. It changes everything." A cold chill ran through her, and for the first time, Elara realized the full scope of what was at stake. This wasn't just about a trade deal anymore. It was about something far more dangerous. And worse, Azrion had already made it clear that it wasn't just about saving his people. It was about protecting the universe itself. Before she could speak, a loud crash interrupted their conversation, followed by the sound of blaster fire. The commotion outside grew louder, and Elara knew that the tension in the station was reaching its breaking point. Azrion turned toward the source of the noise, his expression shifting to one of cold calculation. "We need to move, now." Elara didn't argue. As much as she hated to admit it, she wasn't prepared for the kind of fight that was coming. But Azrion, despite his stoic exterior, seemed ready to face whatever was coming with the calm of someone who had seen 1,000 battles. He grabbed her arm gently but firmly, pulling her with him through the narrow, dimly lit corridors of the space station. The air felt thick, like the calm before a storm, and Elara's heart raced with both fear and anticipation. What had she gotten herself into? As they moved deeper into the station, the chaos grew louder. Screams echoed, and the sounds of blasters rang through the air. Elara could feel the adrenaline surging through her veins, and the presence of Azrion beside her only heightened it. His strength, his confidence, his very being made her feel more alive than she had in years, and it both terrified and exhilarated her. They reached a small, heavily guarded door at the end of the hallway. Azrion paused, his hand resting on the control panel. His fingers moved with expert precision, and the door slid open silently. He gestured for her to follow. As Elara stepped into the small room, the door closed behind them, sealing them off from the chaos outside. In the dim light of the room, the two stood facing each other, the tension between them palpable. "You're in danger now, Elara," Azrion said softly, his voice low, almost intimate. "We both are. But I will protect you. I've made that promise to myself." Elara swallowed, her chest tight with emotion. She wasn't sure if she trusted him yet, but she knew one thing: she couldn't back out now. She was in too deep. Azrion reached out, his hand brushing against her cheek once more. The contact was brief, but it left a mark on her, a spark that flared to life in her chest. It was as if he knew exactly what she needed to hear, what she needed to feel. "I won't let anything happen to you," he whispered. For the first time since meeting him, Elara felt a strange warmth spread through her, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. She didn't know what the future held, but in this moment, she knew that the path ahead would be one she couldn't walk alone. The sound of blaster fire echoed from beyond the door. But inside the small, dimly lit room, the world felt as though it had slowed down. Elara stood a few feet away from Azrion, her mind racing with 1,000 questions, none of which she could voice. The air between them was thick, saturated with the unspoken tension that neither of them could ignore. It was like a force field, a magnetic pull that seemed to draw her closer, even as she fought to maintain her composure. Azrion's eyes followed her every movement, the intensity of his gaze never wavering. There was something in his eyes, something ancient and profound, that Elara couldn't place. It wasn't just the mystery of the heptapods that captivated her. It was the man before her. Or rather, the alien before her. His presence was unlike anything she had ever encountered. Every part of him radiated power, control, and yearning. She shifted uncomfortably, feeling the heat rising in her cheeks. She hated how he made her feel. And yet, she couldn't bring herself to pull away. Despite the chaos that raged outside the room, despite the danger they were both in. All she could think about was the strange, undeniable connection she felt toward him. It was magnetic, inexplicable, and far stronger than anything she had ever felt before. "I don't belong here, Azrion," she muttered under her breath, her voice trembling slightly. "This isn't my world. I didn't sign up for this kind of danger." Azrion took a step closer, his broad frame filling the small room. The space between them seemed to shrink with every passing moment, and Elara's pulse quickened in response. He stopped just a foot away, his intense gaze never leaving hers. "You belong exactly where you are, Elara," he said softly, his voice low and filled with an almost dangerous calm. "In this moment, we're bound by more than just fate. We're bound by the choices we make, by the path we take together. Whatever happens, we're in this together." Elara swallowed hard. Her heart raced as she met his gaze. There was something about the way he spoke, as if his words held an undeniable truth that she could not escape. And yet, there was also a darkness behind them. Something that warned her this connection between them might not be as simple as it seemed. Azrion reached out, his hand hovering inches from her arm, his body language unreadable. He didn't need to touch her. The mere proximity between them was enough to send a jolt of electricity through her skin. And yet, there was something in his eyes that made her hesitate. He was waiting for something. Waiting for her to make the first move. The hesitation lasted mere seconds. Elara, unable to resist the pull any longer, took a step closer. The space between them closed completely. And before she could even process what was happening, she felt his hand lightly rest on her arm, sending a wave of warmth through her body. His touch was gentle, almost tender, but it was enough to make her breath catch. She looked up at him, her eyes wide, her lips parted, unable to find the words to speak. His gaze softened, but there was still that raw intensity, as if he was holding himself back. "You're afraid," Azrion whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of the station's distant chaos. "Afraid of what you're feeling? Of what I'm making you feel?" Elara's heart fluttered. She hadn't realized how badly she needed to hear those words. How much she needed to acknowledge the truth of her feelings. She nodded, her voice shaking. "I don't know what this is, Azrion. But I can't deny it." He moved closer still, his other hand coming up to gently cup her face, the coolness of his skin sending a shiver down her spine. "Neither can I," he murmured, his lips brushing against her ear as his breath became more shallow. "And that's why we can't ignore it? Not now. Not ever." The tension between them was almost unbearable. A force so powerful that Elara could feel it in her very core. She wanted to pull away, to remind herself of the danger. But she couldn't. Not with him so close. The magnetic attraction between them, the pull of something deep and primal, made it impossible to resist. Azrion leaned in, his lips brushing lightly against hers. A soft and tentative kiss that sent sparks of warmth rushing through her body. It wasn't an aggressive kiss. Nor was it just born of physical desire. It was something more. Something that bridged the gap between two worlds. Between two souls that had never met before. Yet somehow understood each other more deeply than anyone else ever could. Elara gasped softly. Her body responding to the kiss before her mind could fully catch up. His lips were soft but firm. His touch gentle but insistent. As if he were testing the waters of a bond that neither of them could deny. Her heart beat faster. And for the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to let go of all the questions, all the doubts, and simply feel. The kiss deepened, slow and deliberate, as if both of them were savoring the moment. The heat between them intensified, the air around them thick with the electricity of their connection. Elara's hands found their way to Azrion's chest. Feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath his armor. Her fingers traced the outlines of his form. Every inch of him exuding power and strength. But also an unexpected gentleness that made her chest ache. In that moment, Elara understood. This wasn't just about attraction. It was about something more profound. Something she hadn't known she needed until now. A connection. Not just to Azrion, but to the universe itself. To a fate that had been written long before they had met. Azrion pulled away just enough to gaze into her eyes. His breathing heavy but controlled. "This is just the beginning," he whispered. His voice full of quiet certainty. "Whatever happens, we are bound by this. By what we have now." Elara closed her eyes for a moment, trying to steady herself. But in her heart, she knew he was right. There was no going back now. The chaotic noises outside the small room were deafening, but inside, there was an eerie silence that seemed to hold the universe itself in suspension. Elara stood still, the weight of the moment sinking in. She had just shared a kiss with Azrion, and while the intensity of their connection was undeniable, she couldn't escape the storm of emotions churning within her. Her heart raced, and the adrenaline from the fight that raged outside still clung to her skin like a second layer. Azrion was looking at her with those piercing cobalt eyes, and for the first time since their encounter, Elara could see the vulnerability that flickered behind his powerful exterior. The Heptapod wasn't just a warrior or a diplomat. He was a man, one who carried burdens far heavier than any human could comprehend. "I didn't expect that," Elara murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Her hand was still resting lightly against his chest, as if she were trying to steady herself, to confirm that this moment was real. Azrion took a step back, his posture stiffening. The sudden distance felt strange, but Elara couldn't deny that the tension between them had shifted. It wasn't just the physical attraction, it was the recognition of something more, a connection that neither of them fully understood, but both felt deep in their bones. "Neither did I," he said, his voice soft, almost regretful. "But there is more at stake here than either of us are willing to admit. The future we're fighting for isn't just about survival, it's about choices. Choices that will shape everything." Elara could hear the weight in his voice, the truth in his words. They had crossed a line, and now there was no turning back. She knew the dangers of this kind of relationship, especially in a place like this, surrounded by threats on all sides. But there was also something undeniably magnetic about Azrion, something that made her want to dive deeper into this uncertain world, despite the risks. Azrion seemed to sense her hesitation. He took another step forward, his movements fluid and graceful despite the tension in the air. "I told you we're bound by this," he continued, his hand gently resting on her arm. "But the truth is, Elara, the real challenge begins now. We've crossed paths in the most unlikely of places, and now, the path ahead will test everything we know." "Test us?" Elara asked, raising an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Azrion's eyes darkened slightly, his gaze flicking towards the door where the sounds of blaster fire had grown louder. "There are forces at play that neither of us can control. And the choices we make from here on out will determine not only our fate, but the fate of everything we care about." Elara swallowed hard. The weight of his words pressed heavily on her chest. This wasn't just about survival anymore. They were at the center of a much larger conflict, one that had the potential to reshape everything they knew. Before she could respond, the door behind them suddenly slid open with a hiss, and a voice gravelly and menacing cut through the tension in the room. "Azrion," the voice growled. "You didn't think you could hide forever, did you?" A figure stepped into the room, his silhouette illuminated by the harsh lights from the hallway. The figure was tall, armored, and menacing. His face was partially obscured by a helmet, but the glint of a dangerous weapon in his hand was unmistakable. Azrion's eyes flashed with cold recognition. "Zirath," he muttered under his breath. "I should have known you'd find us." The man Zirath let out a low chuckle, stepping further into the room. "You've been too busy with your human companion to notice the storm brewing, Azrion. But I'm here to remind you. You can't hide from your past forever." Elara's heart skipped a beat. The atmosphere in the room had shifted again this time. It was a shift into danger. She instinctively moved closer to Azrion, her instincts telling her that she was no longer just a bystander in this fight. This was her world now, too. Zirath's gaze flicked to her, his eyes narrowing in disdain. "And you," he spat, "you're the one who's been causing all the trouble. The human who doesn't know when to walk away. You have no idea what you're getting into." Elara's hand instinctively reached for the side of her suit, where her own blaster was holstered. The air was thick with tension, and the sense of danger surrounding them had escalated in an instant. She could feel the weight of the situation press against her chest. She wasn't a fighter by nature, but she had learned to survive in places like this. And she wasn't going to stand idly by now. Azrion stepped in front of her, his body acting as a shield. "Get out of here, Zirath," he growled, his voice low and full of menace. "This is between you and me." Zirath smirked, clearly amused by Azrion's bravado. "Is that so? I think you've forgotten your place, Azrion. You don't get to decide the terms anymore. Not when the Heptapods are at risk of being wiped out. You're not the only one who knows what's at stake." Elara's mind raced, trying to process the situation. It was clear that Zirath wasn't just some random threat, he was tied to the larger conflict Azrion had hinted at earlier. But what was he after? And why had he come here, to this moment? As Zirath raised his weapon, ready to fire, Azrion moved with lightning speed, grabbing Elara's arm and pulling her away from the line of fire. The blaster shot missed, hitting the wall just behind them. The sound of the blast was deafening, but Elara's heart was beating louder in her chest. "Azrion," she shouted, her voice a mix of fear and adrenaline. "What's going on? Who is he?" Azrion's grip tightened on her arm, and for the briefest moment, she felt the unspoken fear in him, something deeper than just the threat of Zeroth. "He's a mercenary, one of many who have been hired to wipe out the Heptapods. But this isn't just about us. It's about something far more dangerous, something that has the power to destroy everything." Ilara's mind raced. She was no longer just part of a simple negotiation. She was in the heart of a galactic conspiracy that threatened everything she knew. But as Azrion looked down at her, there was something more, something deeper behind his eyes. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about trust. And for the first time since their meeting, Elara realized something profound: she trusted him. The tension in the room was palpable, thick with the smell of ozone from the blaster shots and the sharp, bitter air of impending conflict. Ilara's heart pounded in her chest as she clung to Azrion's arm, instinctively seeking the comfort of his strength. There was something deeply unsettling about Zeroth's presence. His eyes were cold, filled with an icy malice, and every word he spoke seemed calculated to unsettle them. Azrion didn't flinch, but Elara could feel his body vibrate with the barely contained energy of someone on the edge of a breaking point. His grip on her arm tightened as he looked at Zeroth, his jaw clenched, his muscles rigid. There was more to this confrontation than Elara understood. Something in Azrion's demeanor told her this wasn't just a mercenary showing up to cause trouble. "Leave now, Zeroth." Azrion's voice was sharp, cold, and laced with a tension that made Elara's spine stiffen. "You're not welcome here." Zeroth chuckled darkly, lowering his weapon but not completely letting his guard down. "You think you're in control, Azrion? You've forgotten your place, haven't you? You're no longer the leader you once were." Azrion's expression shifted ever so slightly, just enough for Elara to catch a glimpse of something buried deep in his eyes. There was history there. A painful, unspoken history that Elara couldn't quite grasp. But before she could react, Zeroth stepped closer, his boots clicking against the cold metal floor. "This isn't about me, Azrion," Zeroth continued, his voice dripping with venom. "This is about the Heptapods. About their extinction. About you." Elara stood at the edge of the room, feeling a growing unease. The Heptapods, Azrion, this mercenary, it was all part of something much larger than she had ever imagined. The pieces were beginning to fit together, but the puzzle was far more complex than she could have predicted. "What does he mean?" Elara asked, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. Azrion's eyes flickered to hers, his usual cool composure slipping for just a moment. "I should have told you earlier, Elara," he began, his voice low, almost hesitant. "But you're not ready for all of this. There are things I've been protecting you from. Things about the Heptapods. Things about me." The words hung heavy between them, and Elara's breath caught in her throat. The weight of his confession settled around them, making the air feel thicker, more suffocating. She couldn't process it all at once, but she knew one thing for sure: whatever was happening between them, it wasn't just the danger outside that had brought them together. There was something deeper. something they both shared, despite the chasm of their different worlds. Zerutha's mocking tone interrupted her thoughts. The truth always comes out, doesn't it? You've been hiding behind your lies, Azrion. And now, you'll face the consequences. Elara stepped forward, her eyes locked on Azrion, trying to read him. She wanted answers that he wasn't yet ready to give her. Azrion, she said softly, her voice no longer trembling. What is the truth? What are you hiding? Azrion looked at her, his eyes filled with conflict. I am more than just an emissary for the Heptapods, he confessed, his voice tinged with regret. I am the last of a line of guardians, charged with protecting the very force that could save or destroy the galaxy. The Heptapods aren't just ancient traitors, Elara. We're the keepers of the universe's greatest power, the ability to bend time itself. Ilara's breath hitched. Time? You mean the language? The one that allows you to see the past, present, and future. Azrion nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. Yes. But it's not just language, it's a key. A key to a power that can unravel everything. It's why I've been keeping my distance. Why I've been hesitant to trust anyone. Zeruth let out a harsh laugh. Trust? The Heptapods have always been manipulative, hiding behind their so-called guardians. You think you can control this power, Azrion? You've already failed once. Your people will fall, and with them, your precious power. Azrion's face hardened, the storm within him finally breaking free. He took a step toward Zeruth, his movements precise and deadly. You know nothing about the Heptapods, or the sacrifices that have been made to protect this power. The time for your lies is over. With that, Azrion lunged, and the room erupted into chaos. Elara barely had time to react as Azrion and Zeruth collided with the force of two titans. Blaster shots flew, sparks ricocheted off the walls, and the floor beneath them seemed to tremble. Elara ducked to the side, narrowly avoiding the crossfire. She watched in stunned silence as the two men battled with intense fury, each blow carrying the weight of 1,000 years of history. Ilara's heart raced, her thoughts a blur. She had no choice but to act. Without thinking, she grabbed a blaster from the table nearby and aimed it at Zeruth, but her hands were shaking so violently she wasn't sure if she could pull the trigger. You can't stop this, Elara, Zeruth sneered as he dodged Azrion's strike. You're in over your head. Azrion's gaze flicked toward her for a split second, a look of warning in his eyes. Don't listen to him, he shouted. Get out of here, Elara. But Elara didn't move. She couldn't. The connection between them, the pull of something deeper than just physical attraction, kept her rooted in place. Azrion was more than a protector. He was her anchor in this storm. And she would stand by him whatever the cost. With a sharp intake of breath, she made her decision. She aimed the blaster at Zeruth's side, fired, and the shot rang out in the room. Zeruth grunted in pain, stumbling back as the blast hit him. For a brief moment, everything went silent. Azrion stood over Zeruth, his chest heaving, his body a fierce, protective wall between Elara and their enemy. Zeruth was on the floor, groaning, but still alive. You should have left when you had the chance, Azrion growled, his voice full of quiet rage. "Now, you'll face the consequences." The silence that followed the chaos was thick, heavy, and suffocating. Elara stood frozen, her heart still racing from the adrenaline of the battle. The blast she had fired had struck Xerath, but now, as she looked at Azrion, the gravity of their situation hit her harder than ever. They had crossed a line. There was no turning back. She wasn't just here for a simple mission anymore, she was entangled in something far bigger, something that could change the course of the universe.